To begin our adventure with tuplets, let's go ahead and create a new score. If you have an exercise file open, go ahead and close it, and then from the Quick Start's New Score tab, choose the treble staff or bass staff manuscript paper, and just go ahead and double-click on one of those to open them. If you don't input a time signature, Sibelius assumes you're working in 4/4, and that's good for us right now. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on this a little bit, and I'm going to put in a few system breaks so that my bars can be a little bit larger so you can see this better. Great. So the first step toward inputting a tuplet in Sibelius is to figure out what the defining note value of the tuplet is. In other words, are you going to input a quarter note tuplet, an eighth note tuplet, or a tuplet with any other defining note value? Tuplets can start with one value but can be defined by another, such as an eighth note triplet that begins with a quarter note. To successfully input a tuplet, you have to establish the defining value and input that duration first to create the proper length tuplet. The second decision you have to make before inputting a tuplet is how many of those defining note values you want to bracket together into your tuplet. This determines the shortcut number that you'll use when you create the tuplet, and it tells Sibelius how many notes to bracket together. You'll use 3 for triplet, 5 for quintuplet, and so on. So let's create a simple eighth note triplet. I'm going to select this bar rest, move my mouse away. In my keypad, I'm going to select an eighth note, which is the defining value of this triplet. Then I can input any note letter that I want. I'm going to use A. Now from this point forward, we have to engage the tuplet. Now I know that I want this to be a triplet, so I'm going to use the number 3 within this shortcut. And the shortcut for adding a tuplet is to use Command on Mac or Control on Windows, and then the number of those notes that you want in the bracket. So I have an eighth note, and I want 3 of them, so I'm going to use Command 3 to create a triplet, and that would be Control 3 on PC. From this point forward, you just fill out the rest of the notes in the tuplet, so I'm just going to type a few note letters here like B and C, and I finish the triplet. Now, if I want to do that again, that's fine. I still have an eighth note selected in my keypad, so all I need to do is input a pitch. And before I continue on, I have to turn this into a triplet, so Command or Control 3, and then finish it off. Now, what about creating a simple quarter note triplet? Very much the same process. I'm going to escape so nothing is selected, and this time I'm going to start by inputting a quarter note. So I'll select this bar here. Press the number 4 on my numeric keypad to engage a quarter note and put in a note. And before I continue, if I want a triplet, I'm going to use Command 3, which would be Control 3 on Windows, and then just fill in the rest of the notes. Here's another one, Command 3, and finish the notes. Similarly, if we want an eighth note quintuplet, very, very simple. We have to start with an eighth note, so I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to input an eighth note, the number 3 on my numeric keypad, put in a note. Then I have to change that into a quintuplet. So instead of using a 3 for a triplet, I'm going to use Command 5. There's my quintuplet, and finish off adding those notes in there, and there it is. How about a half note triplet? No problem. We're going to start by inputting, you guessed it, a half note. Then Command or Control 3, and finish adding the notes in there. Now, the only time tuplets get tricky is when they start with a duration that is different from their defining value, like a quarter note triplet that begins with 2 eighth notes. So let's walk through that process. In order to create a quarter note triplet that begins with 2 eighth notes, I still have to input the quarter note first. So I'm going to go here to this bar, select a quarter note value, and input a note. I have to turn that into a triplet first, so Command or Control 3. And now I have to go back one step and edit that note so that it becomes an eighth note. So I'm going to escape once. In my keypad, I'm going to press the number 3 to change that into an eighth note. And I have 2 choices here. I can re-input that pitch, or I can advance myself over to this next eighth note and input a pitch there. I'm just going to type the letter C to re-input that pitch, and then I can continue on. Here's D. And if I want a quarter note next, I'll just type the quarter note key here, number 4 on my numeric keypad, and the letter D. And let's say I want more eighth notes within there. No problem. I'm going to choose an eighth note value, and then put 2 more eighth notes within my quarter note triplet. Let's do one more, a bit more tricky. How about creating an eighth note quintuplet that begins with a quarter note? Again, no problem at all. I'm going to go down here and create another system break. There we go. And let's move this up a little so you can see this. Now it's an eighth note quintuplet, so I'm going to, of course, start with an eighth note. So select where you're going to begin, input an eighth note. I have to turn that into a quintuplet, so Command or Control 5. And now I want this to begin with a quarter note. So again, I have to edit that first value. Escape once, turn it into a quarter note. So I'm just going to tap the number 4 on my numeric keypad. And then I need to advance forward. So I'm just going to re-input that pitch, the letter C. And then I can use whatever note values I want from here. Here's my eighth note, D. And I can just continue filling out the quintuplet. So the secret is always establishing the type of tuplet first, getting its bracket to appear, and then doing whatever you'd like while you're inside that tuplet's bracket. You can even create tuplets inside of tuplets. Let's create a quarter note quintuplet with eighth note triplets inside of it. How about that? No problem. I'm going to start right here. I want a quarter note quintuplet, so I'm going to choose a quarter note and put in a quarter note and turn that into a quintuplet with Command or Control 5. Advancing forward, I'm going to input an eighth note. And if I want that eighth note to be a triplet inside of my quintuplet, no problem. Command 3 turns it into a triplet, fill it out, and continue along. Let's put another triplet in here. Command 3, and continue along. So if you're ever curious what 2 eighth note triplets sound like inside of a quarter note quintuplet, let's take a listen. I'm going to escape. Let's move this down so we can see it a little better here. I'm going to select this C and hit the letter P for play. Now, when creating tuplets, I recommend using the shortcuts to create them just because it's so easy to do. But if you'd rather create them from the ribbon, you can find them in the Note Input tab. In the Note Input group, here's the triplet button. That's for triplets. And if you select the triplet down arrow here, then you'll be able to choose all the different types of tuplets. Now, tuplets can be a bit temperamental when you try to delete them. You can't just delete the notes within them. To delete a tuplet, you have to select and delete its entire beam bracket, or I think the best and most consistent way is to delete its tuplet number. The only downfall is that it's all or nothing. If you delete a tuplet, you have to delete all of the notes within it. Let's start by deleting these embedded tuplets over here. So if I select the number 3 on this eighth note triplet that's within my quintuplet, and I press delete, I've removed that eighth note triplet. If I select this one here, I can remove it entirely. And to remove an entire quintuplet, over here, if I select the number 5 and press delete or backspace, the entire tuplet goes away. So if you have any notes inside of a tuplet that you need to remember, let's say you accidentally created a tuplet and you didn't mean to, you'd have to remember those notes because you'd have to delete the entire tuplet and then re-input those pitches without them being in a tuplet. So tuplets can be a lot of fun to work with. I'd suggest taking some time to practice with them. I think you'll find it enjoyable.